What happens when the person nominated to run America's top law enforcement agency refuses to give a straight answer on the most basic question of truth? In a tense Senate hearing, Pam Bondi found herself under the sharp scrutiny of Senator Mazie Hirono in a clash that cut straight to the heart of justice in the Trump era. The air in the chamber was heavy, the stakes obvious. This wasn't going to be a polite back and forth about resumes and qualifications. This was a stress test of credibility, independence, and loyalty to the law over loyalty to the man who had nominated her. From the very start, Hirono set the tone. She began with two personal integrity questions that have become standard in modern confirmation hearings but still carry weight.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of my responsibility to ensure the fitness of all nominees, I ask the following two initial questions. First, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
Ms. Bondi, I am focused on two things in my evaluation of President-elect Trump's nominees. The first is whether the nominee is qualified and experienced enough to do the job. The second is a fitness to serve, which includes putting loyalty to the Constitution over loyalty to the president. Unfortunately, in my view, many of President-elect Trump's nominees are lacking in at least one of these two requirements. Ms. Bondi, your experience as a prosecutor is the kind of thing we would expect to see in a nominee for Attorney General, but I do have questions and concerns about potential conflicts of interest, about whether you will keep DOJ's law enforcement responsibilities independent of the president's political whims, and about whether you will let facts and evidence guide your decisions. So let's start with the importance of facts, which you say is important. Ms. Bondi, we want an Attorney General who bases decisions on facts. So I want to ask you a factual question. Who won the 2020 presidential election?
Joe Biden is the President of the United States.
Ms. Bondi, you know that there is a difference between acknowledging it and, I can say that Donald Trump won the 2024 election. I may not like it, but I can say it. You cannot say who won the 2020 presidential election. Okay. It's disturbing that you can't give voice to that fact. Moving on to DOJ's independence from politics. Ms. Bondi, if you are confirmed as Attorney General, you will take an oath to the Constitution and not to any individual, including the President. To start, I'd like to know during the election, during the campaign. First, are the felons convicted of breaking into the Capitol on January 6th hostages or patriots, quoting Trump, as President-elect Trump has said repeatedly? Do you agree with his characterization of the felons that I referred to?
I am not familiar with that statement, Senator.
I just familiarized you with that statement. Do you agree with that statement?
I'm not familiar with it, Senator.
No answer. He has also said illegal immigration is poisoning the blood of our nation. He said that in December 2023. Do you agree with that statement?
Senator, I am not familiar with that statement, but what I can tell you is I went to the border a few months ago. I went to Yuma, Arizona, and what I saw at that border was horrific, Senator. It was horrific.
Ms. Bondi,
I went to a rape crisis center.
That is
If I could
not my
finish.
question.
I went to a rape crisis center. Well, I'm not familiar with the statement, but I went to a
to
rape
the
crisis
next-
center.
Let
I
me
met
get to
with
the
Border
important
Patrol
I have.
agents. I'm sure you've been to the
Ms.
border
Bondi,
as well, so
I
you
want to
could
get
answer
to my
that.
next question. So I believe that you responded to a question from Senator Whitehouse, and let me get your response again. You said that the White House, if I'm putting words in your mouth, correct me. You said that the White House will play no role in investigative or charging decisions in the DOJ. Is that correct?
Senator, what I said is that it is the Department of Justice's decision to determine what cases will be prosecuted.
What role will the White House have in investigative or prosecutorial decisions of the DOJ?
It is the Department of Justice's decision, Senator.
So that sounds to me that you're saying that the White House will not have any kind of role. Meanwhile, though, you have an incoming president who said, I have the absolute right to do what I want to do with the Justice Department. And in fact, President-elect Trump considers the DOJ to be his law firm. I ask you this. If President-elect Trump asks, suggests, or hints that you as Attorney General should investigate one of his proceedings, would you do so?
Me, had you met, gotten to know
Now,
me, and who refused, Senator, discussed is that it is the Attorney General to
I'm very
follow
happy to
the
listen to
law.
your responses under oath, Ms. Bondi. So I think it's really important to us that the Attorney General be independent of the White House. And you have a president-elect who considers the AG's office his law firm. I would like to know whether if the president suggests, hints, asks that you as Attorney General should investigate one of his perceived enemies.
Senator,
you
I
do?
certainly have not heard the president say that, but what I will tell you is 2/3 of Americans have lost faith in the Department of Justice. And it's statements like that, I believe,
Ms.
that make
Bondi.
people continue to lose faith. If I am confirmed as Attorney General, it will be my job
Getting
to
on
not
to my
only
next
keep
question,
America
you're not
safe,
responding.
but restore integrity to that department.
Why don't we
And that's
move
what
on
I
to
plan
something
on
that
doing
you said?
every single day as Attorney General.
On August 25th, 2025, on Fox News, you said, when Republicans, prosecutors will be prosecuted, once the investigators will be investigated. Ms. Bondi, is Jack Smith one of those bad prosecutors that you will prosecute as AG?
Senator, you hesitated a bit when I said the bad ones. Every decision
Sometimes
will be
badness
made
in the eyes of the beholder. I'm just asking whether you would consider Jack Smith
Senator,
to be one of the people. How about Liz Cheney?
Senator,
How about Merrick Garland?
I am not going to medicals. No one has been prejudged, or nor will
I
anyone
am
be
asking whether
prejudged if I am
these are the
confirmed.
kind of people, these are in fact the people that you would prosecute. I'm not
Your,
getting an
your
answer.
time is up. Would you like to?
My time is,
Would you like to
Mr.
respond?
Chairman, she is clearly not going to answer that question, so let me get on to,
Would you like to?
I do have
I'd love to
questions for the second round.
You'll have a second round. Would you like to speak before I call on Senator?
Had Bondi ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any form of harassment or assault of a sexual nature? Had she ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to such conduct? Bondi's answers were both a firm no. On the surface, these seemed like quick procedural exchanges, but Hirono was signaling that integrity and accountability would be under the microscope today. Hirono then outlined her two main criteria for evaluating nominees. The first, whether they are qualified and experienced enough for the job. The second, whether they are fit to serve, meaning above all else, that they must put loyalty to the Constitution over loyalty to the President. Without hesitation, she pointed out that in her view, many of President-elect Trump's picks had failed to meet at least one of those requirements. The question hanging over the room now was simple: would Bondi join that list? Bondi's professional background as a prosecutor was, on paper, the kind of experience expected from an Attorney General nominee. But Hirono wasn't here to be impressed by a resume. She wanted to know whether Bondi would protect the Department of Justice from becoming an arm of the president's political operation. She raised concerns about potential conflicts of interest and whether Bondi would let facts and evidence, not political pressure, guide her decisions. And then Hirono struck with a question that seemed simple but carried enormous weight in the post-2020 political climate. Who won the 2020 presidential election? Bondi responded, Joe Biden is the President of the United States. A factual statement, yes, but Hirono didn't let it slide. She pointed out that there is a difference between acknowledging someone holds office and stating clearly that they won the election. Hirono likened it to saying Donald Trump won the 2024 election even if you didn't like it, acknowledging both the result and its legitimacy. Bondi's reluctance to give that straightforward affirmation didn't go unnoticed, and it raised the first real red flag of the day. If that exchange revealed hesitation, what came next tested her even more. Hirono shifted to the question of whether the DOJ, under Bondi's leadership, would truly be independent of political influence. She brought up Trump's repeated characterization of January 6 rioters as patriots and asked whether Bondi agreed. Bondi claimed she was unfamiliar with the statement. For political observers, this was a familiar maneuver, claiming ignorance as a way to avoid alienating Trump's base while also avoiding an explicit endorsement of extremism. Hirono wasn't done. She pressed further, quoting Trump's December 2023 comment that illegal immigration was poisoning the blood of the nation. Did Bondi agree? Again, Bondi said she was unfamiliar with the statement, but pivoted to recounting her visit to Yuma, Arizona, where she described horrific conditions at the border and her meetings with Border Patrol agents and a rape crisis center. Hirono immediately pointed out that this wasn't her question, but Bondi stuck to her talking points. To some, it looked like a smart political sidestep. To others, it looked like an unwillingness to take a moral stand. The focus then moved to a core constitutional question: how Bondi would respond if Trump tried to use the DOJ as a weapon against his political enemies. Hirono laid out a hypothetical: if the president suggested or hinted that she investigate one of his perceived enemies, would she do it? Bondi said she hadn't heard Trump make such a request, then pivoted again, saying 2/3 of Americans have lost faith in the DOJ. It was a response that sidestepped the core issue: would she defy Trump's political orders if they conflicted with the law? Leaving that answer deliberately vague. At this point, the hearing took a sharp turn toward a statement Bondi had made on Fox News just weeks earlier. On August 25, 2025, when Republicans will be prosecuted, the investigators will be investigated. Hirono seized on the remark, asking whether that meant she would target Special Counsel Jack Smith, former Representative Liz Cheney, or Attorney General Merrick Garland. Bondi insisted that no one had been prejudged, and no one would be prejudged if she were confirmed. But she refused to explicitly rule out prosecuting them. For Hirono, this was exactly the kind of political retribution the DOJ must avoid, and Bondi's unwillingness to give a clear answer only deepened doubts. Through it all, Hirono's questioning returned to one theme: independence. Could Bondi run the DOJ free from the gravitational pull of a president who openly described the Attorney General's office as his law firm? The senator's hypotheticals and direct challenges weren't just about Bondi's words, they were about her instincts under pressure. Would she resist political interference, or bend when it mattered most? The evasions, the carefully lawyered responses, and the refusal to make certain statements all pointed to a nominee who was cautious to a fault. For Bondi's supporters, that caution could be spun as discipline, a refusal to get trapped by political gotcha questions. For her critics, it was a warning sign. The Attorney General's job is to defend the Constitution, even when it means standing up to the president who appointed them. And in this hearing, Bondi had avoided making clear commitments on exactly those moments when standing firm matters most. The most telling moments came when Hirono tried to pin her down on the truth of the 2020 election, the nature of the January 6 rioters, and whether she'd prosecute Trump's political opponents or protect them from retribution. Each time, Bondi's answers left space for interpretation. That space might be politically useful, but in the role of Attorney General, it could also mean the difference between protecting democratic norms and enabling their erosion. As the questioning wrapped up, Hirono's line of attack had drawn a clear fault line. On one side, the vision of an Attorney General as an independent guardian of the law. On the other, the fear of a political enforcer cloaked in the authority of justice. Bondi had walked that line with calculated caution, never fully committing to one side or the other. And in the polarized world of American politics, that ambiguity would not go unnoticed. Outside the hearing room, reactions were swift. Supporters claimed Hirono's questioning was a political stunt, designed to paint Bondi as a partisan pawn before she even took office. Opponents argued the hearing had confirmed their worst fears, that she would be unwilling or unable to stand up to a president intent on bending the law to his will. The truth, as always, may lie somewhere in between. But the questions Hirono raised won't fade quickly. They speak to the heart of what the Department of Justice is meant to be, and what it risks becoming. In the end, this wasn't just about one nominee. It was about whether the United States still expects, and demands, an Attorney General who will protect the law from politics, no matter who sits in the Oval Office. The hearing left that question unanswered, and perhaps that's the most troubling part. Because when the answers are evasive, the real decisions will be made behind closed doors, far from the public eye. And that's where the stakes become real, not just for the nominee, but for every American who relies on the justice system to be fair, impartial, and free from political interference. Whether Bondi will meet that standard is something the nation may soon find out. The confirmation process isn't over, and neither is the debate. The next chapter in this story could be even more revealing, and possibly even more controversial. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let us know in the comments what you think. Should Pam Bondi be confirmed, or is the risk to DOJ independence too great? The next video will dig into the most explosive moments from this hearing that didn't make the headlines, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.